In this video, I'll sit down with CPU mining expert and fellow YouTuber Rabid Mining to talk about how profitable CPU mining actually is and what gear do you need to build your first CPU mining rig. And this is actually the first video in a two-part series because Rabid is just such a knowledgeable guy that we ended up talking for like an hour straight. So first of all, definitely go check his channel out after this video. I'll leave a link to that in the description. And also stay tuned for the second video coming on my channel in a few days where he'll explain how to set up the software side of CPU mining, how to overclock and how to get paid, as well as his strategy that has made him over $400 per day at times. But in this video, how profitable is CPU mining and what gear do you need? All right, so I'm here with Rabid Mining. Rabid, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, and also really excited to talk to you about some CPU mining. So I figure let's just jump straight into the questions that I have for you, starting with Rabid. Is CPU mining actually profitable right now?
Yes, it is. How do you want me to go into that?
There we go. There we go. No, that's it. That's all we need to know. That's all we need to know. No, that's amazing. So what would you say an average rig kind of makes per day now? Obviously, I understand that's very much down to what CPU you have and what you're mining and so on. But are we talking like, $20 a day per rig, or are we talking a few pennies per day per rig?
Well, I like to start with the basic of a 3900X. It seems to be, a nice low price to performance. You can get, decent used market deals on them. And they're making around, it depends on the day, everything's constantly changing, but you could be upwards of 80 cents to $1 after power, and sometimes even higher.
Oh, wow. Okay, so that's actually pretty significant, especially since we're in basically a bear market right now.
Yeah.
So
now there are days still where, it drops down to maybe 30 cents and stuff after power. But again, it all depends on your power price.
Amazing. That's actually more than I expected it to be. So yeah, there we go. Maybe we should all just pivot to being CPU miners and bring the profitability down for everyone now.
Yeah, that's the way it works. So that's the one thing too. Like, there aren't too many CPU miners really out there right now. But as more and more move into it, it'll just be like with the GPUs. The coins won't be able to support the hardware. But right now, it's looking good. Yeah.
And speaking of hardware, let's just run through what is a CPU mining rig? What compromises a CPU mining rig? So starting with the actual CPU, what do you recommend? You spoke about the 3900X already. So is that like the one you would go for?
I would go with anything Ryzen, really, between the 3,000 and 5,000 series. I would say 7,000 series, but the price to build them is very high right now as it's new tech. So you can usually find all the used sale market deals on the 3,000 and 5,000 series. But I would go with the 3900, 5900, 3950, and 5900X CPUs.
Cool. So all the Ryzen 9 CPUs, like 39 and 59, not like 5700 and those ones.
Not really. You can get them, you can find them cheap enough, but because you need the motherboard and everything for it, you're better off getting as many cores and threads out of it as you can, but it all comes down to the price depending where you live as well.
Okay. And guys, I gotta say that talking to Rabid has made me really interested in starting to do some CPU mining myself, so I'm gonna do just that. And now, of course, there'll be a part 2 of this video coming up where Rabid tells us all about how to actually set up CPU mining on the software side of things, but I'll also make another few videos. For example, I'll definitely do a video comparing all the CPUs to see which one is actually best for mining, both in terms of efficiency and cost per mega hash and all of that good stuff. And I'll also do a full video guide on how to build a CPU mining rig. So definitely subscribe if you don't want to miss those videos coming up on the channel. Intel CPUs is basically like it's not interesting to us, is it?
Maybe the Raptor Lake, I would like to test them, but I still don't think they're going to be too great. They might be okay on XMR and, Duro and a couple other algorithms and coins, just because they're starting to add more cores and everything in. But it does look like they're starting to run fairly high in power. So it depends on their efficiencies. I don't know those numbers yet, but they still lack the L3 cache. They're not putting in enough to utilize those threads. So Ghost Rider, which usually tends up to be, a lot of the profitable coins there, it needs 2 megabytes of L3 cache per thread. With the 39, 3950, 5900, and 5950X, and now the 7000 series, same variants, they got 64 megabytes, which means they're very easily able to use all 32 threads upwards to the high-end Ryzen 9s. The Intels only have, I think with their i9, their latest one is only sitting at 36 or something. So they can only use 18 threads right off the get-go. That's their max limit. So they're wasting already a bunch of that. So if you think of the top i9 that just released using 18 threads, that's only 2 threads above the 3700X. So utilizing that on something like Ghost Rider, that's why Intel is falling behind in the CPU mining side. But coins like XMR, like I said, they may be able to start doing a little better because they are throwing a little more cores in, but they're just lacking that L3 cache. And the way I like to kind of point out the L3 cache, because some people think it's a magic hashing number that gives you incredible hash rates, I like to say, no, think of a DAG file on your GPUs. If you're over that 4 gigabyte DAG limit on Ethereum, you're trying to mine with a 4 gigabyte GPU, you cannot load the DAG file. The L3 just pretty much acts as like loading that DAG file on the CPU to utilize the threads needed.
Okay. So yeah, that's basically it. So you might get a little bit of performance out of Intel CPUs on some coins, but not worth it really.
Yeah, not for being average all arounder, but I'm trying to get a hold of some Intel CPUs to try the new gen, but I don't see how they're working yet, and they just don't have the L3 to actually be worthwhile.
Yeah, because I'm just guessing that like a big chunk of my audience that are watching are probably not. They probably aren't CPU mining, so this might, if they're gonna get into it from this video, this is gonna be the first rig they build. And then they should probably just get a Ryzen 9 CPU rather than an Intel. Yeah,
for sure. Plus, like 3000 and 5000 is technically older gens now, so there could be some gamers upgrading. You'll find something cheap in the used market, and it'll just help.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, cool. So speaking of motherboards, then, like, what do we need to keep in mind there? Is it basically just get the cheapest one you can find that supports the CPU that you got, or is there more to it than that?
It depends on your power price for one and how you want to run it. Now, there's various versions out there, B450s, 550s, the X470s, then the high ends are the X570s. Now, if you plan on actually overclocking it and everything, then you would need the more expensive, higher end motherboards for that. But with CPU mining, running efficiently, you can opt for like the cheapest motherboard you can find because you don't need all those extra VRAMs and everything. On top of that, because you're not utilizing so many extra VRAMs and fans and cooling, it also runs more efficient and less power at the wall.
So basically just get the lower end cheaper ones.
Yeah, that's what I would recommend. But some people do really like to push their CPUs because they have a cheaper power price, but then that ends to more expensive cooling and other things like that.
Oh, okay, so interesting. So it's basically like if you're pushing for really high hash rates, you need to go for the higher end motherboards. But if you want to push for efficiency, there's actually no reason to go above sort of like baseline motherboards.
Yeah, exactly. And it keeps your cost to build a rig down as well.
Oh yeah, that's true. Awesome. So then this is like the question that I think I would get stuck at, which is like, what do I need in terms of RAM? And I think that's because I'm already confused by RAM, and I know that's because I haven't looked into it, but it's all these CL numbers and mega transfers and DDR4 and whatnot. So what do I actually need? Do I need dual channel, or is single channel all right for mining? What's going on with RAM?
Well, to be the most, I guess, optimistic across the majority of coins. It is, I do recommend the CL14. Now, every CL level 14, 16, 18, there are, go aside, you can also get 3200 megahertz, 36, and sometimes 4200 with the higher CLs. But when it comes to most of these, you can tweak them higher with DRAM calculator and get a tighter latency. But I go to look for usually around CL14, and I try to get the lowest latency. You can find that on like PC Part Picker, the milliseconds, or I guess it would be in nanoseconds. And those you do need for XMR and stuff. But if you only plan on mining like Duro and Ghostwriter algorithms, which is your Raptorium, Bitorium, stuff like that, and a lot of these forked coins for CPUs is happening on Ghostwriter, your latency doesn't matter. And then you could just opt in for that cheapest RAM, CL16, 18, it doesn't matter, and just run a single stick. So you don't need the dual channel with 2 sticks or anything, cutting even your RAM costs in half. But if you are an XMR miner or you plan to be more diverse in the majority of coins, you would need the tighter timing CL14 latency RAM and 2 sticks within each board.
Okay, so it's basically if you want to sort of cast a wide net and be able to mine anything, you kind of need to step up your RAM game a little bit because some algorithms are heavier on the RAM than others. Is that right?
That is correct. And I always like to say, like, you can watch all the gaming, Gamer Nexus, everyone out there, J2 Sense, they're all focused towards gaming, and it's all about RAM timings and high performance. And we don't think about any of that when it does come to mining itself.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so let's say I'm building a basic CPU mining rig. I got my 3900X CPU and my motherboard. What RAM do I get if I just I don't want to push it with the RAM heavy algos. I just want decent RAM for like the algos that aren't really focused on RAM usage.
I would just look for something cheap. Like, I can't remember, I just picked up some RAM the other day off Amazon, 16 gigabytes, 2 sticks for like 40, 50 bucks. And all I need is 1 stick, so I can use that between 2 separate rigs. Now, I do like to pair it up if I ever do decide to go to like XMR to solo mine or something. That way I have 2 sticks available. But if you want to just, smash out a few quick rigs, you can just use 1 stick and just look for the cheapest RAM you can really find.
Awesome. Cool. Let's move on then. So what about storage? Because you got to put your OS somewhere, right? So is like an external SSD, or I guess not external, but just a regular SSD, or do we want to use M.2 drives, or what would you recommend?
Well, I have most of my rigs in Hive OS because it makes it so easy to swap them all around whenever you need. Just like GPU miners, you can just 3 clicks and you can move like thousands of rigs around in a matter of seconds. So I like to go with SSDs or M2s. M2s actually are a lot easier now, seeing how most motherboards support it. And then that's 1 less cable, your SATA cable and both SATA cables for your data coming out of the motherboard, as well as the power supply for the power. That's 2 cables you don't have to deal with. Those also draw, if you're really picky, a few watts each as well. Yeah. But I like to put the M2 in there. It covers up, gets rid of a lot more cables, easier on cable management, and you don't need anything big, just something small. Remember, Hive only uses 8 gigabytes or something like that, or 8 megabytes, whatever it is it uses, hardly anything. So you'll just find something cheap and small. The average is around your 120, so that's usually what you can roll with.
Yeah, I guess technically you could maybe even use USB drives, right?
You could use USB, but a lot of people do use them. Don't get me wrong, but I used to, and the amount of testing I always do and resetting it and updating drivers or Hive OS, it takes a long time sometimes to do any updates and moving and downloading custom miners and stuff. An M2 or an SSD just speeds up that process so much faster.
Yeah, I guess not really worth it.
Not anymore. And plus, with the way the prices are right now, they're way down on M2s and stuff. They're pretty much the same as some of the USB drives.
Yeah, because you don't need any of the high-end M2 NVMe drives or anything. You just get the cheapest one you can find, more or less, I'm guessing.
Oh yeah, exactly. Like Canadian price, I think I picked up 5 or 6 the other day for $18 a piece.
Oh wow, yeah. I mean, that's pennies, right? Now, powering your CPU mining rig can actually be a bit of a hassle, since power supplies generally only have a single motherboard cable, so having to buy a whole power supply per CPU mining rig is kind of a big expense and pretty wasteful. But Rabid actually has some great tricks here about how to sort of get around that limitation that he'll tell us about. But first, a quick word from our sponsor.
Established in 2017, Octominer is an international mining hardware company. They manufacture and engineer the best mining equipment in the industry and supply rigs to some of the largest mining farms around the world. Their GPU mining rigs also integrate with the top crypto operating systems like HiveOS, MinerStat, and Simple Mining. All parts come with an international 1-year warranty. Exciting news! They will be adding ASIC miners for sale to their website soon and launching a new product built specifically for ASIC home miners. Please visit octominer.com or email support@octominer.com for questions.
Let's move on to power supplies then. Now, I know the thing with CPU rigs that I think is the big hurdle is not a big hurdle, but it's like, you know, they only pull about 100, 150 watts, and power supplies can, you know, provide 4 times that for just like low end 600 watt power supplies. And it's kind of a waste to buy a whole 600 watt power supply for a rig that's only gonna pull 100, 120 watts. So I know you've been messing a lot with like power supply splitters and things like that. Do you want to like dive into a little bit more on that side of it, I guess, or do you, basically any power supply recommendations you have or any experience with power supplies that you would like to share?
Well, yeah, I've been dabbling a little bit of a mixture of different things. I've been going through Parallel Miner. They've had some holiday breakout boards, which is just like their wires. So I have been hooking up like upwards of 6 rigs to 1200 watt server power supplies.
Right. Okay. So you've been using server power supplies only, or?
No, I've been doing a little bit of everything. So I do have 5 rigs currently. I plan on putting 6 on it sometime soon on a 1200 watt. That way, usually XMR 3900X, about 109 watts. That'll give me, you know, almost 50%. Because the peak efficiency of most majority of these power supplies, ATX, even server power supplies, is around that 50% mark. So that's where you do want to try to run them. Yeah. Now, if you start looking into ATX PSUs, which I have been dabbling around, there's 24 pin splitters for the motherboard, which you can run off those. A lot of the power supplies now also have 2 CPU pin sockets, so you can use that for one for each motherboard. There's also CPU splitters you can get. So then you can drop that down, look for, you know, a nice gold rated, even titanium or something if you find a decent price on 400 watt, you know, maybe 500 watt, and try and get as close to that 50% mark as you can to run at your peak efficiency levels.
So basically, if you're going for ATX PSU, try to aim at that like 500 watt range, hopefully with dual CPU cables if you can, and then use a splitter so that you can plug in 2 rigs, because then you're really close to that 50% mark in terms of wattage pulled. Is that right?
That's close to it. Like, remember, like some coins even only run like 95 watts on the full system on a 3900X. So you're under 200 watts still at that point. So you're still not hitting that 250 that you need for the peak, but you're still a lot closer to it.
Yeah, a lot closer than you would be with like an 800 watt power supply or something.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
and usually those lower ones are a lot cheaper too.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, but better, much better like price per watt as well, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Anything else in terms of like actually building the systems that you want to share or recommend, or?
Not really. It's all pretty basic. You just look for, you know, the cheapest parts you can really find. Like, we're not gaming, we're not trying to pump maximum threads out and stuff like that. When it does come to cooling, I guess we can touch up on that. Because we're running efficient and, you know, we're not overclocking, we're not going insane, we can get cheap coolers like the 3000 series, which is another huge increase in price to performance, is that it actually comes with that Wraith Prism cooler. So that saves on more funds on trying to purchase a cooler. Now, I have been working around. I bought some really, really cheap $20 coolers that I want to test out to see if they'll actually handle this. but the heat is not an issue usually when you're running efficiency on CPU mining. Now, if you're on the other end and you're trying to crank these up like we talked about earlier with your more expensive motherboards, you're also going to have to spend more money on your coolers. And I do recommend air coolers for that over AIOs. AIOs come in at a much higher price tag most of the time, and it's not really designed for 24/7 cooling. It's more designed for gaming where you are hitting those peak voltages, I guess, for really short periods of time, depending what you're doing in a game. And it's designed to move water, carries heat a lot faster. And over time, if you're running 24/7 and you never reset your rig or something, the ambient temp around you in the room slowly keeps heating up that water. So you kind of think of a hot tub heating up over time, passing through the heater. That happens on AIOs. And if you're not resetting your rig once a week or something once a month, you'll slowly run into an overheating problem because the water temp isn't getting time to cool down.
Yeah, I mean, plus an AIO is an extra cost when building a rig, I'm guessing. So it's not really worth it if the, air cooler that comes with the CPU anyway is enough to cool off the CPU.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Another thing is, what about like a frame or a case or anything like that? Do you have any recommendations there?
There aren't any CPU mineable frames out there that I'm aware of. I always joke around about it sometimes. Maybe Octominer will make, an X12 CPU case. I doubt it. But all you really need, like I have these 3D printed little stands here. I did get some custom made ones for me. So they hold up and stand up upright. So that makes space really nice and close. You can put them together. There's a few platforms out there that actually do make motherboard hangers, kind of like how you see with the GPU hangers, but they are made for motherboards. So I haven't really tried them out yet, but I like the way I have them with my 3D printed little vertical standoffs that I have.
Yeah, it's those kind of like 45-degree stands that I've seen in your videos, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they look like they do the job perfectly, and I'm guessing a lot cheaper than trying to build some contraption with like angled aluminum or whatever.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But that's it. Now if you enjoyed this video, then please give it one of these. And if you really liked it, you can now join the channel to help support what I do here. It really does make a big difference and it means a lot to me, so thank you. And as a bonus, if you do decide to join, you get access to our private Discord chat room, and I love talking with you guys in there. But what you gotta do now is you gotta click on one of those videos on the screen, because this video is over. You can also click the picture on my face to subscribe to the channel. I'd really appreciate that. And don't forget to subscribe to Rabid's channel as well. But yeah, now go click on one of those videos and I'll see you there. Goodbye. Goodbye, bye bye.